And I said, who is that? And she said, you didn't know who that was? I said, have no idea. And she said, don't you watch HDHT, whatever, TV? And I said, I don't watch a whole lot of TV, no. She said, the home improvement program. It's a married couple, and they do these home improvements. And she watches it all the time. And they were very nice to her. I said, why didn't you get a picture? Oh, I couldn't ask them for a picture. And I said, well, I can. We got them back, and they did a picture. It was just, that was the
highlight?
That was the highlight for her, was seeing them. But I saw Charlie Baker there. I haven't seen him since he was named the new president of the NCAA. Right?
Yeah.
And so it was good to see him and a bunch of other people. But I mean, I wouldn't want to make a daily habit of that, or even a yearly
They have to
habit.
get all dressed up too. So.
Yeah. But my mom really, really enjoyed it, and I couldn't get her anything better than that.
I guess not, yeah.
So that's good. So you said the other day schools, and you were hoping to.
On a negative note, I wanted to, you probably know him, but Glenn Wright passed away this morning.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, unfortunately. He had a lung transplant a year and a half ago, and but he passed away this morning, so kind of a loss. He was my treasurer from the campaign and confidant, and just an all-around good guy.
Yeah, there's more of that going around now that I'm 80.
You're not 80, are you?
No. Born my player, Heaton Hospital,
Huh.
November 23rd, which was Thanksgiving, 1943.
No kidding. Well, you don't look 80.
Wow, aren't you kind?
Well, no, you don't. So
Well, I'm still out and about. Went up just yesterday morning, took a few runs. And,
did you really?
yeah.
Good for you.
Vales that really improved things. And I mean, I was on a high-speed lift that had gears.
Huh.
You start out slowly, then you sped up, and then you really sped up.
Did you ever go skiing at the Real Mountain in Barrie at Skyline?
I went there every night. I wanted to see how far I could go on the pommel lift. Get jerked off the start.
Exactly.
Land out there.
How
And I
many-
ski jumped there too, and there are wires that you're afraid you're going to hit when you run off the jump.
I always lost more mittens from the pommel lift than I gained. They freeze right to the steel shaft.
No, it's a nice way to spend the evening, with, and you know, girls would go, guys would go, and hang
Yeah.
out inside and stuff. No, it's yeah, I remember it very
Yeah. There you go.
vividly. Yeah, so
Just as praising people looking younger, so there's a little bit of overlap where the governor and I are the same age. I'm actually a little bit older. And so we're doing Vermont this week with Catherine Huntley, and I mentioned this. I don't know how it came out. The governor and I are the same age. She goes, "No way!" It's like, oh, thanks a million for that.
Well,
So that's
I'm sure,
a compliment to you.
No, I'm sure she meant that you look so much younger.
No,
than I am.
no. That is not what she was indicating.
So anyhow, sorry.
So I checked Randolph Elementary. I live in Randolph. My daughter-in-law is a 5th grade teacher there, and the percentage of students achieving proficiency in math is 15 to 19%, and proficiency in reading is 30 to 34%. Randolph Elementary placed in the bottom 50% of all schools in Vermont. So how you get that up?
Yeah. It's
I was shocked.
yeah, and that's what we're seeing as well, and something I talked about probably from the very beginning. As we lose a number of kids every day from our school system, we were up to a high of over 100,000 at one point, and now we're down, 75,000 or so. And we spend a lot of money for education. But
You said
but-
we're number 2 in cost per pupil?
yeah, I think yes, I believe we're number 2. But the concerning factor is that we don't appear to be getting our money's worth in some respect for the product that we're receiving. And we're seeing those low test scores in math and reading, and that's concerning. And I don't know if there's any one single answer to that. Some of it, again, is just a product of our demographics. We're smaller schools, less money to keep everything going. Overhead costs are crushing many of the school systems, and it's all locally controlled. I was asked, I don't know if I was asked at the press conference, like, what are you going to do? And on the state level, we've offered suggestions over the last number of years, kind of a holistic approach, but we don't have any direct control. I mean, all those budgets are derived locally, and then they submit their proposed budgets to the state, and the state pays the invoice. And if there's not enough money in the pot when they put all the invoices in to Montpelier, then we just raise rates to satisfy that. So it's like a self-leveling type of operation with not a lot of control.
Is there a minimum required curriculum?
Well, again, I think there's some guardrails, but not a lot. I mean, it's all controlled locally. Local school boards decide what curriculum, schools decide what curriculum. So I know there's been a push for mandates over the years, a certain type of curriculum that should be required, and they've been met with some resistance.
What does
But I think we should be getting back to the fundamentals and making sure that they're at least
the reading, writing, arithmetic with that?
Exactly.
So, excuse me.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Governor Douglas tried to use the bully pulpit to reduce the big overhead, the supervisors and all that, which is eating up. We're I live in Williston, and there's a tremendous amount of overhead there in that SU. It seems like I haven't heard quite as much from you about trying to reduce the costs from the top down. Is that just because there's just being? I mean, Governor Douglas didn't get any.
Right, no traction.
Yeah.
And a lot of resistance, as a matter of fact, in putting that forward. So it's and I'm not sure. It's real money. Obviously, any amount helps, but it's not big money, really, either. We're still hamstrung by our demographics, and when you look at the last census, and you should take a look at it, because it's really interesting and terrifying at the same time, because we have, in a 0 to 17 year olds, we've lost ground. We lost 14,000 out of that 0 to 17
period.
10-year period, from one census to another. And then we in the 40 to 54 range, that's the meat of our workforce. We've lost 28,000.
Really?
Yeah.
They're already here and they go.
They get older, as we know, right?
Yeah, I got the part.
So in the 65 to 80 category, we gained 80,000. That pretty much tells you everything you need to know
Existential threat
about our challenges.
Government.
And I've talked about this a lot. Our demographics.
What was that number again?
Which one? All of them?
The older one.
65 to 80 gained 80,000.
That's more than 10%.
Yeah. So when you think about the demographics, think about the cost of healthcare. I mean, as we age, we require more healthcare, and so it costs more. It's more of a kind of a burden on society and budgets and so forth. In our schools, we have fewer kids, smaller schools, and we're trying to keep them all going. Everyone wants to save money, but nobody wants to close their own school, and I understand that. But the answer is we need more kids, we need more people, we need more taxpayers. We don't need more taxes, we need more taxpayers. But as you see, when we're losing that workforce, we don't have enough people in the workforce to satisfy the demand. So what happens then? When there's more demand than there is supply, prices go up. It's just it's an economic principle.
When I talked to my daughter-in-law, she said that what's really hard is that in the Randolph School, I don't know if it's a state policy or not, but there are kids who act up every day. And you can't, her words, touch, segregate, isolate, expel, or secure these kids. And so what they do is they empty the classroom of the students to protect them from the person who's acting up. And the students just wander around. They got no place to go. And she said the state just passed some new law or something about restraint. They beefed up, made it harder to deal with some of these people. And she also talked, they have a behavioral team of people, they have a walkie-talkie system so they know what's going on in every room. She said, you do a lesson plan, you don't complete your lesson plan because of all the interruptions. There's a RISE program, I don't know what that is, but I don't know if you do.
Is it Rise Vermont?
I don't know, it's supposed to help with the process and background support and that sort of thing. And then there's an alternate placement school called EDA school. No?
Not familiar.
And they talk about these kids are dysregulated and they have moment of crisis, and then all this stuff breaks out. And it involves not only the behavior team that they have, but also the school counselor and the principal and the vice principal, and it's chaos.
Yeah. Well,
So,
certainly we want to make sure that we protect our kids and protect everyone around them.
yeah, but you're protecting a few, I don't want to say crazies, and then kids that want to learn can't learn.
Right. Yeah. No, it goes throughout society. It's the accountability, and we talk about public safety. That's a huge issue for us. Always has been. I think it's the highest priority of any government, and but we need to hold people accountable for what they do, right? And right now it seems like
consequence.
we continue to find ways, and we've done a lot, in terms of reforms over the last few years, and I believe we've gone too far. The pendulum has swung too far in the wrong direction, because I think people need to be held accountable
Well,
for their
compassion
actions.
is one thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. I have to hold them accountable.
So-
There's a whole culture of
Well, it's again,
behavior.
it's pretty broad, right? And I honestly believe the accountability portion of that is dramatic. I'm sure it's not unique to Vermont, but maybe because of our small size, it's more intense and we see it more. But I think, again, throughout the public safety network, I think we need to hold people more accountable for what they do. And we continue to find ways to alleviate accountability. I say we in the legislature raise the age, of being able to be charged as an adult, and they want to go up to like 25, I think, at one point. In phases.
coddling.
Yeah, it's like there comes a time when a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old needs to be held accountable. So, and the expungement and sealing of records and it's just, I think we're just moving wrong way. And we are going to have a public safety package that is going to address some of these issues. So we'll see how far we get with that. But difficult, being with the makeup of the legislature. They have a veto-proof majority. I don't know if you've heard that or not.
Yeah, I'm pretty much aware of that.
So it makes it a little more difficult, but I think Vermonters in general understand that they want to feel safe. They want to feel safe in their hometowns and their downtowns. And,
Well, maybe it's
sure they
coming
do.
to a crisis level where they really want that.
right.
I mean, you look at what's going on in Burlington recently and all the murders, what have been 15 in the last 2 months or something like that.
Yeah.
This is
And
is crazy.
it's not just Burlington, you
No,
know.
I
we have to
understand,
acknowledge that. I mean, think about it. When Eden, Plainfield, Washington, Wheelock, I mean, these are rural areas.
Not the way to settle scores. Exactly.
Right, but a lot of it is connected to the drug trafficking. Not all of it, but a good share of it. And that's why, again, when we talk about some of the addiction issues and so forth, I continue to believe that we have those four legs of the stool. Prevention is one, and my idea of prevention is different, I believe, than some in the legislature. We talk about prevention, we all agree, but they focus on preventing death. I believe that we should be focusing more upstream and focusing prevention on not getting addicted to begin with, to try and stem that early on. But prevention. Treatment is important. That's the second leg of the stool. Recovery is another leg of the stool, important work. But the fourth leg is enforcement. And, you know, I'm not saying we go back to the war on drugs that didn't work, but there needs to be more enforcement to stem the amount of trade, the drug trafficking that we see that's infiltrated Vermont. And fentanyl and xylazine have changed the game, much more addictive, much
No,
less
but there's a new
expensive,
distribution
more
system
prevalent.
where somehow they recruit younger and younger
Well,
people.
because of some of our laws that we've changed. Like if you're not held accountable and your record, if you're 18, 19, you go through family court, they know that, and they can utilize them for the mules, so to speak, in the drug trafficking world, and they can utilize them, and there's no consequence for these if they get caught, because they'll go through, some get a slap on the wrist, and their record will never see the light of day. So where's the accountability? They're using this against us in some of these other areas, I believe.
And that's not a conversation that the legislature is willing to.
Well, we're going to have that conversation. We've talked about it a lot, but I'd say it's intensified over the last year, maybe two, when we see the number of deaths that we're seeing and the scores that are being settled on Vermont turf, over turf.
We may need our own boundary around the state.
Build a wall?
We have a river and we have a lake, but yeah.
The legislators must know all this. You're not telling them anything new. So what's their pushback?
I don't know if they realize this or not. Honestly, I don't know. We're going to have a public safety summit on Monday. Highlight some of what we're seeing, listen to people, but
it goes back a long way, using kids as mules for this very reason. You know, you go back into the 60s and 70s, they were doing that. Now they can use someone who's older now who can
that's
drive
right.
a car.
Yeah, or get their CDL even, you know.
Yeah.
Trailer full.
With a backhoe.
You said, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but sort of all of a sudden you saw the seriousness of the housing crisis in a new way. and you looked at data and it
Yeah.
freaked you out in some way?
Well, we saw the data is actually showing that we're falling behind in the number of units. We put a lot of money into housing over the last few years, probably over $1 billion. And
You
we
started
added a
out with
lot.
that bonding program when you were
Yeah.
first in.
Well, that was huge, if you remember right.
Yeah, it got better and better, more and more.
Well, $37 million. We thought that nobody done that in our state's history. Nobody provided for a bonding program to put towards dedicated to housing of that magnitude, 37 million. That's like almost
But
a
you
rounding
somehow
error.
leverage that up to more.
Up to 200 million
Yeah.
by the time all in with federal funding and private assets and so forth and so on. So it was successful, and we're still cutting ribbons on some of that. That doesn't happen overnight, and keep that in mind. You probably are aware of that. That it takes a while sometimes to get through some of the regulatory system that we have in Vermont, whether it's Act 250 or zoning or anything else. So that's part of what we're going to have to contemplate, and that's what we're going to be asking the legislature to do, even if it's for a short period of time. It doesn't have to be forever, but we need a couple of years of streamlining this process, and so we can put these projects moving forward at a faster rate.
Have you, not you personally, but identified developable land? Because we have so little between what the state forest, national forest, elevation above 1800 or whatever that is, floodplain,
Yeah.
what's already there, and that ridiculous 10-acre thing which chewed up all that land around Burlington in 10-acre pieces, which was instead of cluster housing.
Right. But that's part of what we'd like to do in terms of zoning, where they prevent some zoning regulations prevent some of the more concentrated development, housing development, which is what we need.
Is that by making zoning wider, statewide zoning or county-wide zoning?
Just
or?
to make it possible to have the housing that we think we need at a more affordable rate. So if a community is preventing that, and they're in like a designated downtown or a zone where we need housing, then we want to alleviate that barrier. So, and it doesn't have to be forever, like I said, a couple of years to allow us to move forward on that, I think would be helpful. And everyone's talking. The legislature should welcome this with open arms, I would believe, because everyone's talking about the housing crisis. And if it's a housing crisis, sometimes you have to do things that are uncomfortable. And we've seen it, whether it was Irene or the July flooding or the pandemic. When you have an executive order, state of emergency, so to speak, you do things that you wouldn't normally do. And if this is truly a crisis, then we better get accustomed to doing things that aren't normal and are uncomfortable.
You haven't ruled out a state of emergency for that purpose.
Have not.
What are you waiting for?
At the legislature to see if they will move forward with this proposal and do it together. But if not, they've asked for it. The speaker asked for it. So
Do you have a year to implement this? You're going to have 3 years to implement this? Or?
to implement it, we'll go through the session and see if we can make it happen. And if it doesn't happen, then we have to take a different approach.
I understand. But are you going to take it to 3 years? Because you're still governor.
Well,
That was a good way of
That was
asking.
too subtle?
That was a very sly way of
I
asking.
I didn't get that. We'll take one state of emergency at a time.
But certainly, whatever. Intensity, if you don't have a long time, grows.
Just to follow up on James's cheeky question there.
I thought it was clever, not cheap.
When would you, So the Patriots are going through this whole thing where they apparently have made a decision on Bill Belichick, but they're not telling anybody. Have you made a decision and you're not telling anybody?
No. I
Okay,
have not
so
made
it's
a
still,
decision.
you're still pondering.
Are you comparing me to Bill Belichick?
Well, the
You have a better record.
success of,
Lately.
But you do have a lot of stars, and more people that I watch work, who work for you, are very capable.
We have it's an amazing team, and any success we have is due to them. It really is. We've been able to break down so many of those silos that I talked about in the early days, and I talked to our cabinet about this almost, one of our first meetings. Like, we got to work together, and we got to treat every day like we're in a state of emergency, and make sure that we're talking with one another so that we can accomplish more. And we've been able to do that just by communicating. We still meet every single week. Cabinet meets, which is unheard of in governor land throughout the United States. Nobody meets every week, but we do, and we talk a lot, and we try and help each other out. And you see, at this table here, we have issues that might affect transportation or Agency of Natural Resources, and you have other agencies listening to the same thing and offering support and help. During the flooding, I can't tell you how much VTrans, Secretary Flynn, did for the Agency of Natural Resources in terms of helping with some of the state parks, opening them back up, going in and taking machinery, and during the pandemic, same thing. We didn't have anyone that was taking care of the boat launches and so forth, and cleaning up, picking up debris, getting them ready, because people could still get outside. We wanted them outside, but nobody was overseeing that. So VTrans said, we'll take care of it, and they just did. So simple little things like that make a huge difference, and it gains us the chemistry we need.
When I was preparing it, I came across the culture of COVID. I don't know if it was something that you said and I wrote down, or something I thought while you were talking.
You must
But for example, I was reading the thing in 7 days about getting people evicting people out of their homes, and I was thinking, I bet the money that came during COVID that could have paid back rent was not used to pay back rent. I don't know if it's used to buy more drugs or buy more stuff, but it just seems there seems to be a mentality that the crisis helped develop. It wasn't part of it. I don't know, there's too much free money floating around. That's what it was.
I think we certainly needed the resources, but we took them all too. We didn't turn anything away. But as we look back, and I think it would be a good project for some bright students to work on in their master's degree or whatever it is, as a case study. Did we inject too much money into the economy all at once?
The answer is inflation, yeah. They did.
Yeah, and some of the other ills that came along with it, with our hotel motel program, I wouldn't say was a success at all. And it was something that the federal government provided the resources. You just put them up. You need to find a place, segregate people and families and so forth, and make sure they have a safe place to stay. And so that was the hotel motel program that was funded by FEMA. And it really, is that the end of our interview?
So that's the call from Tutwiler. It is,
Oh.
Core Civic. A friend of mine, Eric, is the person who calls me once a week, chats.
Oh, nice.
I've been there twice to visit it. I went to Kentucky too, went to Pennsylvania.
So that wasn't exactly a success story.
Yep.
And in reflection, if we'd had all that money that was spent, the FEMA money that was spent, and could have put it towards permanent housing, we would be a lot further ahead than we are today. But again,
Just to back up, what does the education department do if it can't kick ass and take names, so to speak.
Well, it's up, you know, it takes legislation to do some of that too. I mean, it's, the education agency is overseeing the school system, making sure that they mind their P's and Q's, but adhering to the law that's been established. But there's this blend of the local control
Okay,
that precludes that, and whether the legislature wants to get involved and whether we as a society want to change local control or not.
That,
you
yeah.
get some questions?
Yeah, I have a few, Governor. On the you were talking about the recovery from the flood. Is there a timeline for the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail?
Yeah, good news there. Everything is on track. In fact, we believe we'll have bridges up this month to allow for snowmobiling on the rail trail, and some of those bridges that we're receiving will be permanent. There'll be a couple that will be temporary, and when I say temporary, it could be for, you know, a year or so, but it'll open up the complete trail at that point.
Are you going to do the bike ride that
Yes.
you had planned?
Yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
It's almost 100 miles, you know,
Yeah.
on gravel.
Yep. Yeah, I know.
I did a century when I was I don't know, like 39 or something. Almost killed me on pavement.
Yeah, I've done a few centuries, so this one will, you know, start early and late, and a lot of stops in between. It'll be fine.
You know, I was thinking sort of philosophically, and I've talked to a lot of people about this. When you're running for a governor or mayor or president or something like this, there's a lot. You know, you're so excited when you win, I would imagine,
Or terrified.
and you really want to happen. But in the back of your mind, you know there's something terrible's going to happen. There's just no getting around with it. Moreau's dealing with that right now. You've dealt with it a couple of times. Governor Shumlin with Irene. So how do you think about that part of it? That, yeah, I'm getting this job, it's going to be a grind, et cetera, but how do you deal with sort of there's going to be something that's going to be really emotional and difficult?
I think I prepare for that almost every day. You know, there's an anvil dropping from the sky every single day. Sometimes we don't always hear about it, but something's happening that is difficult, and you deal with it. But when you surround yourself with competent people, with talented people like we have, our entire cabinet and extended cabinet and all the state employees as well, then you can get through it, and you establish the relationships to get through it as well. So part of what's unique, or I think it's unique, you know, in Vermont, that we all kind of work together during times of crisis and help one another out, neighbor to neighbor. And I think it's agency to agency, and even with the legislature, working with the legislature during that time, we know it's essential, and they're a willing partner.
Another political thing, you've expressed admiration for Nikki Haley and the whole presidential process. You've stuck with, I'm thinking about the congressional turnover. You know, things happen in life. Perhaps Bernie Sanders will get a cabinet position. You don't know, a congressional seat could open up, or in the Senate or the House. Would you stick to what you have done in the past in selecting a person to fill the seat that had the same political affiliation?
I would. I think it's important to give that consistency. I've done it for legislative seats, for side judges, for state's attorneys, and I think that builds that trust, that you can trust that not going to play political games.
Bernie doesn't have a political party.
I think we can pretty much figure out where he's at, though. I mean,
Okay.
he caucuses with the Democrats, although he's listed as an independent, but he's a much left-leaning independent. But you know, we would hear from a lot of people, I'm sure, at that point in time.
Oh, I'm sure you would hear from a lot of people. And the governor of California made an appointment recently in a similar situation, and one of the requirements was that that person not run for that seat when it came up. Is that something that, that you would want?
I talked about that at one point, and I can't remember which seat it was. Maybe it was when Bernie was actually considering. We thought maybe he would take a cabinet position.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, we what I'd like to do is we have to have a special election anyhow. Just the person that is going to be put into place would not run for the seat.
Do you call a special election within a period of time, or is it just the next general election?
No, it's
6 months.
within 6 months.
Okay.
So it's just kind of a placeholder, having someone there.
Yeah. Okay. Those are just a couple of things I had, James.
The other day, you talked about the tech system. It just seems over the years that we're always behind the curve. Is your group really getting ahead of the curve, or getting on the curve?
In tech, you mean?
The agency's technological processing keep looking. They talk about, you know, we're still waiting for the phone to buzz or something.
Yeah, we're much further ahead than we were 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I think I said this at the press briefing. One of our proudest accomplishments, I think, has been creating the Agency of Digital Services. Before that, it was like the Wild Wild West. Nobody was, you know, in control. Nobody was advocating for, you know, it was sporadic. Every agency department had their own IT systems and nothing.
Yeah, it was crazy to me, considering all the technology in Burlington.
Yeah.
All the people are doing so much new stuff, and yet the state is way behind.
Yeah, but as well, I mean, all these different systems, customized systems that they were developing just for them, that didn't connect with anyone else. So again, it's one of our probably an underrated accomplishment, but something that I'm proud of, because it put us further ahead than we were, and it's catching us up. We got a long ways to go, though. I mean, all those legacy systems talked about before, whether it's motor vehicle or labor, and the mainframes are just old.
How are you doing getting Wi-Fi to everybody?
It's they're doing a good job, and it's coming, but inflation has affected even that program as well. You know, I knew it was going to be difficult. I remember on the campaign trail in one of the elections, and somebody had said, well, we can just...
Jim Douglas said he's gonna get it done, someone said he's gonna get it done, everybody.
I never said...
I know, I hadn't heard that from you.
It's gonna take time, and it's gonna take a lot of money, and I said, what we need is like an REA type of approach. We need federal help to do this. We're gonna need hundreds of millions of dollars to do this. And I remember one of my opponents saying, it's free. We could do it for free. We just make the utilities do it.
Yeah, but
And then which is just
the state has to do it.
Yeah.
You can't force Comcast or EC
no.
others to run more lines.
No, I don't believe so. I mean, it has to be. I don't know how they would pull out of Vermont. I believe because it's not lucrative. That's why it hasn't been done, because it's expensive, and you know, the last mile and rural parts of the state difficult. So I think we're making ground, but
What percent do you think is still up without?
I don't know. I would want to check in with them, but
I think 6.
6%?
Yeah.
Oh, I would think it's bigger. I would think it's larger than that. 6%.
Or none at all. I think there's different tiers, like underserved and
Yeah,
fully without.
I'd wanna check that out before
I can get you those numbers.
You know, it seems like the 5G has resulted in a step back from cell service. And I was asking someone about that, because I drop calls in my kitchen
Yeah,
at my house, and I live in Williston,
yeah, I get the same
in the
thing.
village.
Yeah,
And someone said, yeah, it's more powerful, but it's not as broad than
we are, so broadband cell service, two different animals in some
Yeah.
respects. But I've advocated for, in fact, in the last budget, I'd asked for $50 million to advance and broaden the cell service in Vermont, and legislature had absolutely no interest in talking about that whatsoever, none. So it wasn't included.
because everyone knows about it. I mean, the broadband seems doable. You know, it seems like it could happen if you had enough money and
Well,
enough will.
I think cell service could too. I mean, $50 million, we're gonna spend hundreds of millions of dollars on broadband. But I think cell service we had a plan together where it would improve, at least along some of the corridors. You know,
Are you done racing?
no, I don't think so. I'm a glutton for punishment. I hate to
No,
give it
it's
up.
in your blood.
Yeah, I just hate to give it up. I keep saying, I probably should just step down, but
How many races did you do last year?
not enough. That's part of my problem
Did
too.
you do the big guys, the milk and all that stuff?
No, I didn't do that race. I during the flood, I immediately stopped, and I stopped for probably 2 months. So missed a lot of races. And as you age, you're not as adaptable as you once were. And,
Well, plus it takes a while to get back in the
well,
gear.
that's what I mean. It doesn't come back as quick. So we'll see. I'd like to have one, and then same thing happened with the pandemic. I took, I think, a year off.
Any technology, new tires, new way they cut tires, new something?
Well, they have a lot of rules in place. Everyone buys the same tires, and you're only allowed a certain number every single week of new tires, so that people can't buy
Didn't know
tires to
that.
go faster. Same with the engines. You have to buy a certain engine. You can't touch. They're sealed. You can't touch your engines. Even suspensions now, they tell you what shocks you can utilize. So it's
Wow, I didn't know it tried to make the field so level.
yeah, and it has leveled the
So
field.
it's just skill
Yeah.
and risk avoidance.
Well, that too. And I find maybe it's age and experience where you know how much things cost, and whether you put yourself in a position to cost yourself a lot more money. You might be risk averse from an economic standpoint.
Yeah.
I still wrecking doesn't bother me, but paying the bills.
Yeah. Well, it may put you out of a few races before you get it back together. again.
Exactly.
Did you have a relationship with Ken Squire?
I did, yeah. He was a mentor to me in many different ways. I spent a lot of time with him, before I became involved in politics. I remember one of the first times he took me. I don't know, a little known fact about Ken Squire. He was the worst driver in Vermont, absolute worst. He called a lot
He
of
said he'd
races.
go over Plattsburgh and race.
Yeah.
That's what he told me.
Okay.
No, huh? Keep him off the track.
Well, it wasn't the track; it was just getting there. I mean, he was just a bad driver. So I went to Speed Weeks back. Oh, I was probably somewhere in the 90s. But my job for the week, and he has like an incredible schedule while he's there. It's like 24/7 the whole week. He's got to be somewhere all the time, dinners and doing programs and interviews and this and that and all kinds of things. And so so my job was to get him there, drive him, and obviously I wasn't going to ride with him because I couldn't take that. I wanted to live. So I drove him for the week, but he took me everywhere, every dinner. Met some incredible Richard Petty and the Joe Gibbs and all. I mean, he was always trying to build somebody else up. He downplayed his own stature, but he was always trying to build somebody up. One quick story. So this was back when they had the 125s, and they would tape the 125s. They were 2 races right before the 500, Daytona
okay.
500. So they had the qualifying, like 125 lap races or mile race. So they would tape those, and then they would edit them, and then they'd go on TV the following day or something. So he said, okay, the 125s happened on a Thursday. On Friday night we had this dinner, whatever, and he said, okay, pick me up at 4:30 tomorrow morning. We got to go to Epcot to the studios to do the editing. And I said, okay, I'll be there. And I, sure enough, picked him up at his hotel. We drove down, pulled into Epcot, and got to the security booth and so forth. And the guy reached in. He said, and Ken leaned over and he said, Ken Squire here at CBS. We're going to be going to do the editing at such and such a building. And the guy looks down the list. He says, I'm sorry, I don't have your name here. CBS, he said, Daytona 500. We're here to do that. Nope, don't have your name here listed at all. And I said, try Phil Scott. And he said, oh yeah, Mr. Scott, yeah, you're all set. I said, can I bring my guests with me, Ken Squire? And he said, sure, yeah, sure. So he completely forgot. He told people, called in and told them about me, but forgot about himself. so anyhow, it was that kind of thing.
He had that roll top desk in his office, and he'd do sports right from there.
He would do sports. When we were there, we were doing an interview with Joe Gibbs and his 2 sons in the tower at Daytona.
Yeah.
We were up there doing an interview with them.
That's the biggest set of stands I've ever seen.
Joe Gibbs, I mean, he was fairly new to the sport at that point,
Right.
but I mean, Washington Redskins, famous coach. I mean, this is a big deal,
Yeah.
right? So we're right in the middle of the interview, and Ken, okay, and right in the middle of the interview, I'm sitting there with them, and he said, I gotta go make a phone call. And Joe Gibbs is like, you gotta make a phone call? I mean, what do you want to finish oh, I'll be back. I gotta do the sports. Stop the interview, calls in on his phone, doesn't matter where he is, does the sports.
Just from his head.
Yeah.
It
makes stuff up.
Always interesting. Whatever. All right. So, are you thinking about, you probably won't even answer this question, but in your last year, whenever that is, you could take risks that you might not be able to take otherwise. I don't know if you're got a list of things can't wait to do.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the list we started with, and we haven't accomplished all of that. And if you remember it's the demographics that are affecting almost everything in Vermont. But we've got to make Vermont more affordable. As I said the other day, and, raising taxes, making things less affordable isn't a recipe for growing the economy. It just isn't going to attract people into the state. And I think that's lost on the legislature. Obviously, at times, I vetoed the budget last year for those reasons. We're going to have a tough year this year, budget-wise. I talked about the 3%, holding our agencies and departments at 3%.
You talked about the 18%.
Well,
Also.
and this is, now we're finding out with all the obligations that we have, if we adhere to 3%, that's just going to get us to satisfy the obligations that we have right now. There's no extra money for new programs, not without raising taxes. So when I hear,
They don't think they can raise the 3.2 billion or whatever it is, 2.3 billion of cash sitting over there?
that isn't their cash, it's already been
I
committed.
understand that, wasn't my question.
So, growing the economy, making Vermont more affordable, protecting the most vulnerable. And when we talk about protecting the most vulnerable, I'm talking about public safety today.
No, my question is more like fifth rail items that you kind of don't want to touch because of the political consequence. And in your last year or whatever, there's things that there's no risk because you're not running for reelection,
But-
but you might just
Yeah.
try to do.
Well, we try and do
We
those things
try to do those anyway.
every single session. You know,
Okay.
I mean, I'm consistent, if nothing else. Because I truly believe it's our only answer to prosper in the future. Those numbers, the ones they gave you, you know, the census numbers tell us everything we need to know. And it's like we're ignoring that, or some are ignoring that. And having, you know, increasing a payroll tax for childcare, nice thing to do. We had a program that we put forth that wouldn't have taken a payroll tax to do, and it still would have been, that would have made us, I think, second or third in the nation if we'd done what I said around those constraints. Doing it the way they said made us number 2. It's like there's only one position difference. Still a podium finish when you think about it. But nice thing to do, but you know, this comes at a cost. It's gonna cost taxpayers. It's coming out of something. And now I hear the House still wants to do paid family leave. You know, they want to go back to the same bucket, and they're gonna raise raise the payroll tax again. That was one of my fears, is that once you open that door, the payroll tax door,
Easy.
it's easy. See how easy it was, and nobody notices. You know, so little money, but it raises a ton of money. But the stark reality is, if they think we don't have the hundreds of millions of dollars that we've had over the last couple of years due to the federal money coming in, that's already here. It's already accounted for. We don't have any more coming in, not to the extent that we had before. So it's going to be a tough year budget-wise, and you got to buckle up, get ready.
Yeah.
Does the
Just wanted, the Gov has an 11 o'clock, so just wanted to.
Oh, we got 2 minutes.
he can make a phone call. Is the revenue numbers telling you anything, that the personal income tax is doing pretty well? Consumer taxes, motor vehicles down.
Yeah.
Is that telling you anything about the direction of the economy?
Well,
at
I
the
think
moment?
it's they're not all doing great. They're leveling off and heading down. We'll see what happens. You know, if we get a bump, good news. But it's all one-time money. It's really understanding the difference between base funding and one-time money, and I don't know as all the legislators understand that it's not ongoing revenue. So when they talk about their new initiatives, whatever the new initiative is, I don't see any new base funding that is available unless we do without something, and that's fine too. If we want to put a higher priority on something and do away with something, fine. But raising taxes is just.
Well, I was wondering, you know, people might, and even legislators aren't gonna grasp some higher concepts. And I mean, affordability is like, what does that even mean to a lot of people? But
Don't raise taxes.
bad cell service and raising property taxes, that's something that everyone would feel and everyone understands. So why aren't they understanding that?
Well, I've heard some of the, I think some of the legislators, and I think you're gonna hear more of this, is, well, that's just the commissioner just telling us what it could be. We face this all the time, sticker shock, we'll take care of it, we'll buy it down. We never, you're not going to see this kind of thing happen. We always have this, not like this, not 20%. And to buy it down from what? we don't have the one-time money available. It's all committed. Even the one-time money that we'll have for budget adjustment is committed to things we've already promised.
Thanks having Joe call Wanda, she called me about time. I
Oh,
got-
good.
Got to my car.
Oh, good.
I can't get my plate back, she said, no, that's gone. I said, how about a 3-number plate? She said, that's up to the governor. So, yeah, they're working on the other parts. There's a new investigator that she just hired, who had been working in the drug business with the FBI and other stuff, so
What happened to your 3-digit plate?
I never had, I had 1224 for years.
Ah,
And I got in the mail, I got a new plate, and 1224 went away. And I called, and I couldn't talk to anybody about it. And so when I met with Wanda the other day, she said, you can't get that back, because we gave it to somebody else, and we don't want to go there. And
I
so,
wonder what happened, though. Did she say what happened?
Did you get a new car?
pardon me?
Did you get a new car?
But still, you should be able to keep your.
No, I
That's how we lost
I
ours.
went online to re-register, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
couldn't re-register. And so I called, and well, somebody in Fairhaven has it.
Yeah.
And I said, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And then I thought maybe Wanda could turn that table, but she said no. She gave me a list of numbers that are available. There are a lot of 4-digit numbers that are available. And that's when I said, what about a 3-digit number? She said no.
I don't think there's any available, to be honest with you.
Well, must have waiting list for that too.
We don't want to get Jason in trouble here.
But as far as the fraud went and stuff like that, the inspection system, they're on that.
Good.